All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Wednesday, August 23rd. You are watching the Daily AI Show. And today we have a few of us. Aaron, I think, is coming back. He had some internet issues. Jimmy is still out, and Carl was not able to make it, which did put us maybe all in a bit more of a panic because we kind of considered Carl to be our resident expert. That's not to say that we can't have a great conversation here today, because the conversation is about low and no code solutions, but also Langchain, which I think is really important to start with. And then some tools like Langflow or Flowwise, right? Robert, Flowwise.
Yep.
Flowwise. And what does all this mean? So I think let's just kind of let's just start it real easy. And Andy, we were literally just saying this before we went live, the difference between like Langchain and Langflow. So you want to say what we were just saying?
Sure. So first of all, we're talking about large language model operations. And Langchain is an open source code system or framework for Python to operate an LLM. So we've talked before about you have to have prompts, you can build agents, you need to have a vector database maybe. Well, Langchain makes it easy to string all these things together in sequences called chains. And it has a simple UI compared to being confronted with a Python console. It has a simple UI that has like literally buttons on the left where you say, okay, I'm going to start a chain here. So here's a chain. Here I'm going to add prompts and so on. But those go, in the case of Langchain, into code blocks like a notebook, like a Jupyter notebook, if you're familiar with that from using Python. Langflow makes it even easier yet by making it a graphical user interface for Langchain. So now you can literally drag and drop blocks onto your screen and hook them together. And I've never used Langflow, but I know Brian is playing with it this morning. So go ahead, Brian, give us an idea about what it's like to build an LLM application using Langflow, the UI layer on top of Python's framework called Langchain, which has really taken the place by storm since the advent of ChatGPT.
Yeah, and I think what you're going to see here is that, to Andy, what you just said, and then let's open up the conversation even more, but it is crazy stupid. Once you get it running, now this is running locally on my machine. You can see that it's just got a local address. So when I did this several months ago and installed it, Robert and I were just talking about this. Like when I did this a couple months ago, there wasn't a ton of documentation. It was pretty much on GitHub. It was definitely punching above my weight. And I struggled to get this going. But once it was going and I went through like PyCharm and I ran the scripts and stuff, it's actually pretty easy once you're here. So I have two examples. I have a basic one and I want to show you another one. And essentially on the left here, you're going to see you have, drill downs to all sorts of fun stuff over here. But we're just going to kind of look at two at the top, agents and chains to start with. And there's really two different ways to think about when you're looking at Langflow. And I think what I love about this the most is like, if you're a conceptual learner, if you're a visual learner, this is fantastic. This lights up all the buttons for me and all the lights for me in my brain, because I can see how things are actually connecting with simple connector tools like this. So if we just start with something like we want to do a Langchain, and you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff behind it. It has basically three components on here. We have a memory, we have a prompt, and an LLM. Well, the LLM is essentially what you would do first. And if you look on the side here, I actually have a few different LLM options. I went ahead and just picked a really easy one like ChatGPT. And so once I do that, I was able to put in my API key. I decided what model and temperature I wanted to run on, and that's all I have to do there. This prompt template is just literally, hey, how do you want this to act? Now, I'll show you in a second why it shows, act like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, because I want to show you the example of why this runs. And then, but that's basically saying, hey, ChatGPT, act like this person, which we are real familiar with. And then you have a memory portion to it. And that memory just essentially means that as I ask consecutive questions, it remembers, just like ChatGPT would, what goes on in the past. And what's super cool about this is after you just kind of like literally drag and drop, connect, and I mean, the only maybe big thing was putting the API and how I want the template to work, you can actually run it right here. So you can see what my first question was. Can you explain Saturn's rings? I just wanted to get a very easy
Where did you put that input, by the way?
So it goes right in here. If you were to see right down here, it literally just acts like as a inline chatbot, essentially, running off of this. So within a couple of seconds, it came back and said, certainly, blah, 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 blah about the rings. Now, just to prove that it was pulling in memory, I did not mention Saturn. I just said, what else is similar in the universe? And it's like, oh, yeah, Saturn. You're just still talking about Saturn here. Now, if you look down here, I had changed the prompt and I said, do you have anything else to add? But now it's acting like Eeyore. And now it said, oh, not really. I'm just really here, excited in my own little world, right? So it changed based on my prompt input what I wanted to get out of that. Now, we could go on and add other things into here. We could, in fact, when you go into import here, I'll even show you real quick. There are a ton of examples that you can pick through and just load immediately in here and play around with. So you'll see things like CSV loader. You'll see things like PDF loader. So loading a PDF and asking questions back against it like you would with ChatGPT. Or
can I ask you a question on the Saturn prompt? So go back to that real quick. So you had the prompt up, you asked for Saturn, then you asked for anything else in the universe, whatever. Is because you're making the comment or making the making the clarity that it's going back to memory. Is that throwing all of that into the next next call to the API, all of that previous memory? Or how does that actually go against their token usage?
As far as I know, yes, but I wouldn't know the answer to how it affects the token usage.
Okay.
Probably
I'm always curious if the memory actually it actually causes it to be. Well, I guess
is it here locally or is it pulling again? Yes.
I think that in the current session, the chat history, which is what you're referring to as memory, as compared to the database, which you're going to upload documents to, that's different kind of storage. The memory is consistently maintained through the session.
Right.
So it's going to know
like if you're using ChatGPT, you're using, so it is using it as your context window. So once you get to 8,000, it's going to start being forgetful or whatever the.
Right,
I would imagine so.
Exactly.
Yeah, that sounds right to me. Yeah. And in fact, you can see I have limited options here, GPT-4, 32K4 and Turbo on here. Of course, look, there's other language models. So it would be great if I knew more about Llama to jump in and do that or look and see what's part of this language model for the Hugging Face Hub. So real quick, I don't want to stay on this too long because I want to just get into more of a general conversation, but this is a different option. So in this case, what I did, instead of starting with a chain, I started with an agent. And agents are really good at solving things versus maybe creativity. And you actually see here, I have it set as 0-shot reaction, and I'll explain that in a second. There's basically two things going on here. And it sort of looks like an electrical grid, like you used to do in school, like flipping the switches, right? So there's a calculator that I'm using, and I'm also using a search engine response page, SERP. Google basically response here. And there's a unique API that goes from that. It came from serpapi.com. And then we also still are using our same language model here. So I'll use the
example from the pull down menu for agents.
Correct. Under agents, you have several agents that are underneath here, and we use the one for initialize agent. Okay. In this particular instance, but there's obviously other ones. And so I wanted to show this really quick. Solve this math problem. What is 4 times 100? And then if I break this out, it goes, this is a simple multiplication problem. I can use a calculator to solve it. Action, use the calculator. What is the question? Here's the answer. So I love that you can see the reasoning behind it. So then I said, okay, who won the last Super Bowl? I need to find out who won the recent Super Bowl. This is up-to-date information that will require a search. Action, use the search function. Who won the last Super Bowl? It's the Kansas City Chiefs. But now this is something that's really cool because now what we can do is we can say, there we go. Take the current number of home runs by Aaron Judge, which I validated on the internet is 24. And I said, multiply that by a number of 10. So we did get the right answer. And we can actually see here, I need to find the current number, blah, 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 input. Well, it gets an answer and it gets some sort of average. And it says, I don't have the exact current number to run home runs by Aaron Judge. I need to refine my search. So it goes back to search, goes back, finds the actual answer, then multiplies it by 10 to get this.
Now, this is the language model doing this. This is the language model going through that process of determining what needs to be done and what needs to be searched for, correct?
Yes. And then but if I do this, not the fastest in the world. It usually takes a second or two. So it's not like instantaneous like ChatGPT. So I'm intelligence. I don't have it, but I'm functioning as expected, right? So when you look at this, I guess it won't let me. The problem right now is that it's sitting at 0 shot description, but honestly, you can come down to conversational and now it'll do a little bit of both. And now if I ask something, we might get a slightly different answer because or just break it. And that ends the end of that description.
Okay, let me ask you, go ahead and put your UI back up for just a quick second, Brian.
Sure.
There's a bunch of elements on the left-hand navigation for Langflow, and I wanted to just draw attention to vector stores because one of the essential elements of building any kind of action like you're seeing here within Langflow, and then developing it so that it's going to be operational and basically power a chatbot, is you're going to want to put specific information that it can refer to rather than having it call upon its own general knowledge and or do searches, as you saw.
It's going to be under embedding.
That's what vector stores are about. It's a database, a vector database. And what are the options for the vector databases down there under vector stores? It's the section of the last.
Chroma.
Just Chrome, huh?
Interesting.
Chrome. Oh, it's Chroma. Okay, yeah.
Chroma is it? Yeah. So I would have expected to see Pinecone there, Supabase.
That's the thing about this Langflow is that it's a UI, and whoever's created this UI chose these particular ones for whatever reason. Maybe they work better, but just to your point, Andy, when you're using actual Langchain, you can go out and do this, but it requires so much more programming. So go ahead, go back to your point about embedding.
That's what I wanted to point out, is that this actually has a tool that will allow you to put your company information into a database, Chroma database in this case, and then that is a resource that you can direct through your prompt selections to, prioritize over just answering based on general knowledge from ChatGPT 3.5 Turbo or whatever.
Right. So I want to jump on this and kind of talk a little bit more in depth about that. So the first thing people will need to understand is if you have 1,000 documents that you want it to answer the question based on, the first thing you're going to need to do in order to get that vector storage is to convert it into an embedding, which is where the embedding was on there. And OpenAI has an embedding tool, which converts it to 0.0001527223 is the letter R, or whatever. It isn't really convert letters to numbers, but the point is, that's weird. The point is that you convert the words and the concepts and the documents into a vector representation of that, and then the Pinecone and Chroma is where it's stored in a way that's accessible by the LLM, which is what all this is about. But I wanted to take a little segue in case anybody looked at the recent news from OpenAI. They're actually
go
ahead,
before
Beth.
you do that, because I want to ask, when it is converted from memory to a vector, does that make it smaller in the same way that if you convert something to pixels, from pixels to a vector, it shrinks it so you can contain more information in a much smaller?
It's not so much about a storage efficiency. It's really about creating a computational opportunity to determine whether one embedding is similar mathematically to another one. And that's what we would refer to generally as semantic search, converting terms into numbers and then saying, this document that I uploaded, this chunk of it, because an embedding breaks it into little chunks, this chunk of it looks very much like what this query is. So I embed the question that's being posed, I put it against the vector database, and I find anything that's similar to it, and I pull those back, translate them back into the text. Go ahead.
And the way that works is it's literally a vector. It's a 4-dimensional vectorization of that terminology, and so the terms are close together. a cat and a dog are both pets, so they're kind of loved. They're literally close together. So when they're accessed by whatever the query is, they look at what's nearby. It's literally how it's put together.
And I've actually been told by Pinecone that they use trigonometry for that. That 4D spatial representation, it uses trigonometry to determine the spatial distance between semantic words, which is the difference of the opposite of where you get with SEO, which is a very limited cat and dog are similar in the sense that they're both pets, but it may not give you the whole context of how cat and dog might be used. So yeah, sorry, Beth, go ahead.
Sorry, children. The when am I ever going to use this in the real world has just blown apart.
You're going to say that.
So part of what I was asking is, do vector stores give you more bang for your 8K, 16K, 32K token?
100%, because you're not having to load that 1,000-word document or War and Peace into that. You could actually just access the data that's relevant to the question or the query you're asking and pull that out of the vector. So you're definitely optimizing for your token usage. Yes, 100%. The next thing I was going to say is that OpenAI recently, just yesterday, August 22nd, released that you can fine tune a version of their LLM. It's 3.5 turbo, and it's 8 times more expensive, but fine tuning their LLM would in some ways bypass this whole chain of events, because you are not having to have that call to the embeddings and do all this stuff. You can basically train the LLM to know exactly what your company is about and understand those documents, and you can basically pre-train it before you even get into all the other stuff, which again goes no token usage whatsoever if that's the case. So that's very interesting. And
they charge you for the number of tokens needed to do the training, but that's a one-shot kind of thing.
Right.
Then subsequent queries don't add to your token usage against that particular instance, which is a separate instance of OpenAI's model that you have access to with your training too.
Exactly. And this is just like what they did a month ago when they said you can, what's it called? About the user, you can basically preload it.
Custom instructions.
It's kind of like a bigger version of that, which also doesn't go against your tokens, I'm assuming.
So my understanding with vector storage, sorry, Brian, is that after sorry, this is also Dogs of Daily AI show, because apparently everybody's dog is talking to each other. I don't know if you can hear that or not. After a session with Langchain, you can like do a picture or a knowledge graph of what you just did and add that to your vector store. Is that possible with the fine tuning of the 3.5? Do we know yet?
I don't know yet. I just learned about this 30 minutes ago.
Yes. As soon as we all learn that Carl would not be here today, we are all.
Yeah.
No, I think I was just going to say real quick, because Beth, I think you brought up a question like, why why is this important? And I think Robert and Andy, you guys kind of just sort of nailed what I would consider to be a huge use case, and what Carl would definitely have been talking about, because Carl has gone and built custom chatbots and stuff for people. And so he's definitely much more knowledgeable in those areas because he's doing that currently for clients. But I look at this and I go, internal and external facing chatbots. So exactly what Robert was just saying, I think Andy too, about, hey, I can build an internal chatbot that not only knows my internal data, so everything through HR, everything that I might need to know as a employee for that particular company, go into sales, like think about all the white papers and all the things that are living documents somewhere, that right now, probably the best use case for that is like SEO search, basically like keyword search across those documents. And now take all that information, and if somebody was so inclined to use something like a Langchain to build out a process, not only could they make it so that it's much, much more searchable and more relevant to what they're looking for faster, but also imagine you have companies that now have multiple offices across the world. They can deploy that through Langchain in any language they want, literally. So that's a huge case. If like you're like, oh, I need to be able to quickly disseminate this HR information out to my team, but some of them are in Portugal, Some of them are in the US and some of them are in Germany. Okay, I got 3 languages I need to deal with. That could be a very real world use case.
Yeah, and you just have one module that translates it. Yeah, that's very easy. I will say, let's not get too. I want to go back to the high level for those who are not so inclined. Think of this as there's models out there. There's products that people have created. There's ChatFlow or chat based. Chat base is there's tools. There are hundreds of chatbot websites that have come out in the last couple of months that do all of this behind the scenes. But let me give you a good analogy I just came up with. I think anybody familiar with Blue Apron, where you can get your ingredients sent to you and you get your recipe sent to you and you just sit there and be like, okay, and make your meal like you're a robot. Great, okay. Then there's go to the grocery store and get your own groceries and make it food. And then you have a garden out back and you actually grow the food and then you cook the meal. This is what we're talking about. This is the Langchain is that one. Langflow is probably going to the grocery store because it's got a nice little flow and helps you with. And then the Blue Apron is going to be more of the actual application. So rest assured, this is not easy. The Langchain is a great framework and it's actually an import when you're writing Python code. So you import OpenAI, import Langchain, you import all these development databases. But my point is that you're going to have somebody that's familiar with Python to make this happen. But that being said,
that was going to be my question. How damn hard is this to set up for someone who's not a techie?
Well, set up pretty easy. You follow a YouTube channel and you can set it up, but actually being able to create and troubleshoot and problem solve and use case, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Beth?
Right. So, and the idea behind this, like, to use Robert's food example, you can jump off the train at any place, right? So like you can just go and say, hey, ChatGPT, I have a question. What's the answer? Or what's your opinion or whatever that is. And you can like have that kind of relationship. It's fine. You can go to a takeout, get your food, bring it home. No problem. You can get a little better and say, you are this is the context and criteria, right? This is what I want. You can get a little better too. You can go to the playground. Now you can save your presets and do a bunch of stuff. Take the class at AI Exchange, join us. Then you can continue to iterate and deepen your skills. And this would be a next level down. Langchain, Langflow would be a next level down. Doing it without the interface, the Flowwise interface would be a next level down, and then customizing your model, right?
Yeah, like, straight up coding is the baseline, right?
So for overwhelming you, like just do the takeout version. Get really comfortable with takeout and then start iterating down.
And I will say too, I mean, that's a great point. Well, first of all, it's a great analogy. And just to like add on to that, I would say that's exactly it, because like I hate cooking. I just do. I don't find any joy in being in the kitchen and chopping vegetables. I love eating. I just don't love doing the work. And so for me, I'm always going to default to the not takeout. I won't go that far, but personal chef model. If I could, if my finances suited such a thing, maybe when this show blows up and I get my own personal chef finally, somebody will at some point in my life, somebody will make all my meals for me and I will happily let them do it. And I'll say, that looks amazing. And then I'll eat it and that'll be the end of it.
Well, using your analogy, then you can use ChatGPT-4 as your personal chef for code that you could then put into a Jupyter notebook and then say, I don't understand any of what GPT-4 just gave me, but when I click run, it does what I asked it to do. So,
exactly. Yeah. And if I'm so inclined, I can throw it into that tool and I can say, break down the entire recipe of the menu I just got into macros, carbs, calories, the whole thing, iron count, right? We could break it down that way as well. The other example too is like, you look at tools like Wix and stuff. And nowadays we know there's AI tools that will you type in a command and it will build you a simple website. And so now we're very much at the end of like a plug and play, like move this here, block or whatever. It's super, super simple. So, look, I think we have 5 minutes left. I mean, the conversation really is about these emerging no and low code solutions. Langchain is an example, but I mean,
actually,
Andy, you put out a couple.
I'm not sure Langchain is low. I think it's actually pretty codey.
Yeah, you need to be
no and low.
facile with Python, I think, to go into Langchain directly. But there are things built on top of Langchain that are a little easier.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because I don't have any Python knowledge. I mean, if I write something in Python, it's because I directly looked it up and I copied and pasted it. That is my level of comprehension. So Aaron, you were kind of talking about that. Like, what if this isn't your thing? It's not. I have to go look up every single thing to do it. But like Robert, on your Carl's call yesterday, you had Al on the call yesterday. This was in the AI Exchange group. He built out this amazing workflow that he did, and he straight up said, like, we're like, wow, that's amazing. He's like, I literally YouTubed and ChatGPT'd every single line of code that I needed to know. I learned on the fly. It was really
which was pretty impressive, because I know enough to be dangerous in Python, and that was not beginner stuff. So I guess I mean, he may have literally copied and pasted, which I did when I was first learning. I don't understand what it means, but I'm going to copy and paste it because GPT does. And so if he truly did that, then he probably doesn't understand what it does, but he understands that it works. So because I mean, honestly, I'll just not to do a segue, but I was doing that before and it didn't work. And I'd copy and paste the code and I'd send it into GPT. What's wrong with this code? And it would tell me what's wrong, and I'd fix it and it would work. And like, that's what people are doing now. And so you don't have to have any coding experience. You can just copy and paste the code and it fixes it for you. And you just tell it what you want it to do.
What's the website, Robert? Is it Stack Overflow? Is that the real common coding website? And one of them had like a 40% or 60% decrease in traffic after people started using ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 to do code analysis and write code. And that is astounding.
That was like a community of people that would help you with a problem you were having. Yeah, you would post your problem, and a week later you might get a response from 10 to 20 people that may or may not give you the right answer. But now you don't need that anymore. So that's a good point. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Hey, let's give a shout out to Ann Murphy, who's joined us.
I love Ann.
Hello,
I'm so glad
Ann.
she's here.
Hey, Ann.
And Aaron, you are probably, of us, the one who's done the least sort of digging in this. How are you?
Yeah.
How are you hearing this?
So, look, my internet died, so I missed the beginning. I don't know what I missed that was important. Intellectually, this stuff interests me. I just haven't had a use for it. I haven't done any coding for like decades. So I've had a little bit of experience playing around with a ChatGPT to try and tweak code, and I had a friend help me set Python up and do one or two things, but it's still. So for me, I love the idea of it, and I've got a use case where I want to upload a whole pile of marketing documentation and be able to query it. But I think at this point, I suspect I'm like a lot of people out there who will probably go out and get one of the off-the-shelf systems that kind of does something similar, like Chatbase, for example, and then I suspect what we'll see is the likes of Langflow and Langchain people will start to put a nice wrapper on it and probably make it a lot easier to install it and use it, and that kind of stuff. So I think that sort of stuff happens eventually.
Yeah,
it's so much better than it was. Sorry, Robert.
I was saying it'll be Google and Microsoft. So this time next year, this will all be embedded in their ecosystems. You'll be in the Teams environment, and all of this will already be trained if you're a large enterprise user, because it's going to cost a lot. So most companies won't have the ability. But yeah, you're right, exactly, Aaron. This is all we're in the Wild West. We're in the what's it called? The Oregon Trail across the country right now. We're the first
the outback, as we call it.
Our Conestoga wagons are jet powered, though.
Of course, that too. But we're not going after gold. We're going after tokens. I don't know, whatever.
Hey, guys, I've got a question for you. Actually, there's a couple of comments from Steve Kazan or Kazan. Someone might want to flash it up, but. In my little bit of research, I ran across in relation to Langchain, I ran across the phrase auto GPT. Now, as I understand it, auto GP in theory is going to be you tell it what to do and it goes out and pulls all the pieces together. Is this kind of the same concept, or is this
hitting towards the technology? Yeah, so it uses the technology of a customized model by basically being an auto agent. So it will instruct itself on how to create the tools necessary or search the knowledge necessary to get the answer. It can't create, it can't do any coding, but Agents, basically, you're giving one task and it has several steps that it will take on its own. Yeah, so that's what an auto GPT. But let's
is anybody able to answer this question for Steve? The question Steve had is there an AI app that can digest RSS feeds and create a newsletter?
I don't know the name of it, but I have run across a couple before. I've seen people putting out newsletters. I'll do a little bit of Googling for you, Steve, and see if I can find something else.
Do you know?
I would just recommend you go to There's an AI for that and use their AI search and say, I want an RSS fed newsletter app and see what you get.
I've received emails from people who tell me that they are using an AI tool to build it. So there's definitely stuff out there.
And we referenced Matt Wolf yesterday as a YouTube personality who shares his process. And that's one of the things that he does. He collects tools and he has a whole video about his process. So that would be another resource to check out.
Awesome. Well, there's an AI for that. Perfect. So we are, as always, already at time so quickly. There's always 1,000 more things, but as they say, leave them wanting more. And so that's sort of an overview. I think we kind of nailed it, right? I mean, it's good to know what's out there. If I'm a CEO, if I'm an executive, if I'm a leader at my company, I want to know what the possibilities are out there so that I know where I can go ask more questions. And I think this is a great example of tools that you should be aware of, whether you're going to be the one that actually deploys or uses them. It's really, really helpful. Hopefully you guys find that too. That's super helpful to know more about it. All right, that's it for today.
Join us tomorrow.
See you later.
Back tomorrow. We'll do this again. See you guys.
Have a good Wednesday.